on this episode of Southern Fried Geekery.
Speaking of Canada, did you guys see where they got mad at Shania Twain last week? Like the Canadians.
Wait. Canada got mad?
Yes. So Kitty Pryde was 12.
Somewhere around there. She was a young teenager.
Do we know how old Colossus was?
19-ish.
Was when they
I
started
think
getting
he was a
together.
little younger than that.
You think so?
I think he was about 16, 17. He's just really big for his age. Like,
Yeah.
He's big
I
for
don't
his
know.
age.
Giant Size X-Men #1 when
Yeah.
they debuted.
yeah.
I'm a little more. Maybe because he's large, but I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure he was upper teens. Because I remember even when I was young, junior high, seeing a story, he was pointed out about that.
Yeah, I think he was 15 or 16.
I really like it when they draw him with a beard now.
I haven't seen
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah.
comes and goes depending on the artist.
Colossus with a burly Russian man beard
Does
is...
it
pretty
turn
great.
into metal too?
No, it doesn't. It stays just like his hair.
But his hair
But
was.
his hair always turns into metal.
You can't
No,
have
his
his hair.
hair
No,
doesn't. His hair's hair.
Well, whenever he gets lit on fire and shit like that, it stays.
Sure, it's always been
Yeah, but it's
dark.
always dark,
Well,
so it's always the same color as his hair.
Yeah, the beard's the same texture as his
I
hair. It's
remember
maybe
the white
metal.
shine
Yeah.
drawn into the design. You're wrong.
Well, maybe, but I mean, it may be metal hair, but it's still
Metal
the
hair.
same color as
Hair
his
is metal.
hair.
His hair is metal. Well, you guys want to do a podcast?
Sure.
Why not?
All right,
We're
let's
here.
let's do it. Hey guys, welcome to episode 17 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As always, I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
I'm Craig Lance.
I'm Sean.
Why did you give your full name?
Because I like my full name.
All right, I'm Jerry.
And that's Jerry. And, this is the podcast where we talk about all things comic and geek culture related, including oddly aged hookups in early X-Men continuity, apparently, and how that works. But, hey, we thank you all for coming back to join us some more. It's been a great week so far. Been a lot of fun happened this week in regards to a movie that just dropped that was bonkers.
An amazing movie that dropped this week.
But we're not going to dive too much into that right now. But hey, if you guys have enjoyed what you've heard on the podcast so far, go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, all those other fun things. It's a really good time that we're having over there. Things have happened in the news.
Yes. Things have happened.
Stuff and things.
Stuff and things and stuff. I want to get us started on this whole news thing because I really enjoy it when new characters show up in comics and in comics continuity. And a big creator that I'm a big fan of, Jim Zub, and an artist that we've been talking about since kind of we started this podcast, Sean Isaacs, are bringing a brand new character into the pages of Champions. Her name is Amka Aliak, I believe. She's also known as Snowguard, and she is a young superpowered Inuk native. And the Inuks are a tribe from up around the Arctic. They're a native tribe from up there. And she's a shapeshifter. She's not a mutant. She's not an inhuman. But she reminds me a little bit of Silverclaw from like the Avengers Volume 3 Busiek Perez run. So she uses, I guess, her ancestral connection to the land, and she can shapeshift, which is kind of cool. She showed up in Champions number 19, which was last week or the week before last. And I didn't know she was going to be an ongoing character till they dropped that on us.
Yeah, so pretty, as far as I can tell, I'm not sure there ever been any kind of characters that have come from, like, Inuit or Inuk, all those kind of, like, Arctic characters off the top of my head.
What about the girl from Alpha Flight?
Which one?
Wasn't there a female that had powers that were kind of like that were supernatural, based upon tribal stuff to where in Canada?
I mean, there have been, like Vixen, you could even argue, without the shapeshifting, it has a similar
I
power.
was going to say White Tiger.
But there have been power similar, but, like, I mean, there haven't been that many where they're, like, I don't know, Eskimo's an outdated term, but, basically that kind of Arctic natives like that. It's pretty cool to see see them drawn in from that. You haven't seen much, if any, from there.
I'm just excited to see new characters.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I am not well read on Alpha Flight, which is maybe something that I need to
Nobody is.
remedy.
Nobody reads Alpha
Oh,
Flight.
Canada.
I've read a couple of them. I mean, I dig Sasquatch.
Yeah,
He should get some more time.
I like Wendigo. Does that count?
I don't think Wendigo is actually a character in Alpha Flight. Gauntlet.
No.
It's just a creature.
Just Sasquatch.
He's
Wendigo
a
just
creature
chills.
they fight. He's a creature that's created that they fight.
And there's Puck, a little man that bounces around. And
I do like Puck, too.
Everyone likes Puck.
Speaking of Canada, did you guys see where they got mad at Shania Twain last week? Like the Canadians.
Wait. Canada got mad?
Yes.
That
Well,
takes
in the
a
most
lot.
polite way possible.
It was the most polite way possible. I put up a Facebook post that apparently Shania Twain went like medium MAGA, not full blown Make America Great Again, but just kind of. And the Canadians were like, no, please none of this, and which is kind of like a harsh scolding apparently in Canada.
That's as close as they get.
Yeah, it was really funny.
It's kind of funny.
Talisman was the Alpha Flight member. Possesses vast supernatural powers as a result of her descent from 40 generations of Sakri shamans, and was once described as a mortal channel through which the gods can fight.
Well, in fairness, I mean, no one knows Alpha Flight, so...
Yeah. No, there's at least one person out there that's sitting there yelling at us into their listening devices.
And feel free to comment on any one of our social media outlets to let us know all about Alpha Flight and how much you love it.
Hey, I mean, like I said, it's a blind spot for me, so I would love to learn more about it.
Absolutely.
Because there are some, there's some good characters that come out of there. I mean, you've got, who is it, the Champion comes out of there.
Like literally, the only character I know it is because it made early headlines was it Morningstar, the one that came
North Star.
out.
North Star. I forgot he was Alpha Flight. I always
He was
associate
Alpha
with him
Flight.
He was Alpha
with
Flight,
X-Men because that actually happened in the X-Men. But yeah, he was Alpha Flight. So.
Sasquatch was a really big one that I always remember. Sasquatch and Puck.
Yeah. Big news in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
They announced Star Wars Resistance, a new cartoon animated television show.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take place pre The Force Awakens, is my understanding. So I'm real excited about that. I'm sure Jerry probably is too.
Yeah.
I still need. Sorry. Go ahead.
I still need to finish up Rebels, but I can't wait.
I know the article which we actually posted to our Facebook page, if anyone saw that, but heavily anime inspired is what it's going to be. About it's a new pilot. It's going to be looks like a lot of space battles going to be going on in this one,
Which is amazing.
I'm interested to see a trailer because whenever they said heavily anime inspired, I'm wondering if they're going to cut the ties with the CG animation and then.
It sounds like it,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking it's going to be Voltron-esque.
Oh,
would probably be my, Sean talking about it being space oriented. It seems to me it would be.
and confirmed into the show is actually going to be BB-8. It's going to be appeared as well as they have Poe Dameron and Captain Phasma.
Well, it would make sense if you're going to have it's going to be a pilot based one because Poe's like the head pilot in the Resistance.
I'm just happy they're actually going to do something with Captain Phasma.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, she didn't get enough shine in the movies at all.
So seriously, you guys should read the book Captain Phasma,
Yeah.
or the comic book even, which is a 6-issue story that retells the book. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And that's final note. Poe Dameron and Phasma's actors are doing the voices for the show.
Oh, awesome!
Oh, that's rad. Well, you said final note, but actually,
sorry.
you said we're talking about trailers that Jerry mentioned. We're talking about Star Wars. A new Solo trailer is out now, and I'm just wondering from you. I don't know if Jerry's seen it yet because it's actually in the trailer is in the opening for Infinity War.
Well, I guess I'll see it tonight.
No spoilers on it, but just I wondered what your initial reaction to this new trailer was. I didn't have a lot of hope, I guess. I needed a new hope for the Solo movie.
I see what you did there.
I made a pun. It was this one actually made me want to see the film. This gave me a lot of this put a lot of credit on this film for me. It gave it a little bit more of a runway. So I'm actually really pumped about this movie now.
Honestly, it didn't make me feel any worse about the movie, but it's still not exactly giving me what I need to know as far as is Han Solo going to be a piece of shit? But beyond that, it looked fine. I'm sure Craig's probably got a lot more detail into it.
I mean, I don't know that I have a lot more detail.
You have a lot more, Craig.
But I do have some, thoughts about it. I really enjoyed the trailer.
Yeah.
I liked it better than the first trailer. I had no intention on watching any more trailers because I usually only watch the first trailer. But like you said, it was for Infinity War, so got to see it whether I wanted to or not. Without, I could have closed my eyes, I guess. But it was. I mean, yes, the question is still out there. The big question is, how are they going to portray Han Solo? Is he a scoundrel? Is he a lovable scoundrel? Is he jackass. I mean, how are they going to portray him? But that's okay. I mean, some things are okay to be left to the movie, and I'm excited for this movie.
Well, I will say I got a little bit of that vibe, and I didn't get that out of the first trailer, but I did get a little bit of the vibe that he was not a happy-go-lucky, everybody's best friend buddy
Yes.
type of guy. And this one, he actually seemed a little bit more guarded, a little bit more edgy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the right word, but maybe, I don't know. I got a little bit more of the Han Solo feel that I wanted from that trailer.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
So, my question is, because I know they just released a second trailer. Was this a third trailer?
I think it's a different. I didn't watch the other trailer that came
Okay.
out, so I think it's a separate one
So
from that one.
if it's the second one, then I've seen it, where they actually name the android and everything in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
They're just called droids in Star Wars.
okay. Sorry.
It wasn't me this time.
I've been pretty excited about this movie since they first showed a trailer for it, and it's not necessarily because you know me in Star Wars. I'm not like a huge diehard fan where they have to get everything right and all this stuff. I haven't read any of the novels or anything, so I'm not huge on the expanded universe that's set in stone or any. I don't think any of that. I'm excited for another space adventure. And there's stuff in the trailer that's excited me since the first trailer came out, so I'm pretty hyped about it.
I am too. I want to correct one thing I just said. The Captain Phasma comic book is not a retelling of the novel. It tells you what happens between Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Yeah. Nice.
So it tells you how she gets out of the trash compactor and how she gets her place back in the...
In her suit, right?
No,
Is
that
that
happens in the novel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember you talking about it at
Yeah,
one point. But I couldn't remember which.
For those of you that don't know, her suit, the reason it can take a blast from a blaster in the Stormtrooper armor can't is it's actually made from the hull of Palpatine's yacht.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's why it's that shiny chrome, the chrome.
Yeah.
That's why it's that shiny chrome.
I just thought she was just shiny and chrome.
No, that's why
Shiny and chrome.
That's why it is able to take the blast
was a
from
war
a blaster.
Yeah, I want Captain Phasma to have been a war boy. That's what it was.
Well, she kind of is. If you read the novel, she really is.
So the Eisner nominations are out. Did you guys see that?
I did.
So for those of you who don't know, the Eisner Awards are kind of like comics. It's a poor allusion, but they're kind of like the Grammys or the Emmys. They're some of the biggest and most coveted awards for creators in comics. And they happen once a year. They're named after Will Eisner, who is maybe other than Jack Kirby, one of the most celebrated cartoonists in history.
Created the Spirit?
Yeah, he did create the Spirit. And a ton of other... He also is one of the first people to ever meld words into panels and to play with something other than just square boxes. He was a genius, and I've got the utmost respect and love for him. But the Eisner, the awards are out, the nominations are out. They usually announce the awards. I want to say it's San Diego Comic-Con every year. It's in San Diego or New York. I forget which off the top of my head. But I want to send a personal congratulations to somebody that I really, really appreciate and enjoy. Also Rocky the cat, or Damini, whoever that is, singing to me back there. Shout out to them. But I want to send a congratulations and a shout out to Emil Ferris, the creator of the graphic novel My Favorite Thing is Monsters. Is that Orion? Did I name every cat but the right one? She's either cheering me on or disagreeing with me, but either way. I don't actually care. It's a cat. Cats aren't gendered.
Be respected.
Cats aren't gendered. I am being respected. Quit being a Neanderthal. Gender's a social
Love
construct.
my cats,
Oh my
Caleb.
God.
Cats are 90% liquid, so they are.
That's true. They are fluid. But no, Emil Ferris is the creator of a graphic novel that I really enjoyed. One of my favorite things on my shelf. It's called My Favorite Things is Monsters. My favorite things are monsters. And it's a wonderful, wonderful series. And she got 4 nominations for it. And it's really, really good. The book got 5 nominations total, but Miss Ferris actually got 4. So I'm super excited for her.
That's very cool.
So how about that Venom trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that Venom trailer?
That was a lackluster.
Sorry. I've got mixed feelings about it.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's why I want him to go first.
You want me to go first?
You're the strongest Venom fan here, I would argue. So
Well-
go ahead.
My thing is, like, I'm not a huge Eddie Brock Venom. That being said, I feel like they're nailing the character. Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy's a great actor. He feels like Eddie Brock. They finally showed the costume, which looks insane, and all the special effects with it and everything. I feel like they're just gonna fall flat when it comes to the story. I don't know. I have my biggest concerns are for the story in it. I guess the villain in it is supposed to be another symbiote.
Possibly.
I mean, because
They showed two.
yeah, when they were loading it into the truck, there were two slots with it.
So potential Carnage or potential original, but most likely another symbiote. Which, no, I'm fine with. Personally, like, because like that first trailer, like I wanted to, not judge on a teaser too hard, but there was definitely worry. And still, we haven't seen nearly enough of the movie to make a judgment yet. I think it looks pretty good. I'm loving, of course. I always give credit to Eric Larson for giving him the Venom tongue.
Right.
And they showed that in that trailer. I know some people have expressed concern about lack of Spider-Man, as far as we know.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't know that
But
he's not in it yet.
I'm gonna throw it out there. This movie can exist without Spider-Man. Another issue people raised up.
Yeah.
Because they call themselves Venom. What's Venom? A spider. It's simple. It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
Have them have the big white spider suit. It could still be garbage. Don't get me wrong. It's Sony. Marvel is helping, though. So I'm holding out hope.
So for me, I think we live in an age where the internet has made people think that you have to either love or hate something, and that's largely untrue. And this, for me, falls in that gray area. It didn't necessarily make me feel anything. It didn't give me a ton of expectations. It didn't give me a ton of animosity. It was just kind of a thing that happened. People are talking about how either great Venom looked or how bad they think he looked. I think it's important to remember that this film is not finished yet. There's still a lot of stuff that is going to have to go to post-production, and that there are a lot of CGI artists who are going to do a lot of work to that. So we have not seen the final look of Venom yet. If you go back to trailers like the first Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, and you watch that first trailer, the CGI wasn't done on that, and that animation actually looked pretty rough. That CGI, the look of things, it was not the best, and that's kind of where we're at now.
That first trailer of Guardians got you so hyped.
I mean, the music alone.
Yeah.
But he's not wrong though about that.
Yeah,
CD.
But I mean, and already like leagues above what they did with previous Venom.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man 3.
Oh yeah, He looks.
Topher Grace.
Yeah,
Topher Grace.
Venom looks amazing.
That's
already.
70s Venom.
Yeah,
That's 70s Venom.
I mean, I don't have a lot of thoughts on the
Yeah,
trailer.
it just didn't make me.
I'll watch the movie. The trailer didn't excite me for the movie. It didn't turn me off from the movie any more than I possibly already was. So I'll go see the movie and I'll reserve my judgment. I really, like I said, the trailer didn't do much for me one way or the other.
Well, so I think we're going to keep going with the movie thread since we're talking about movies. A lot of us, now that we've seen the first part of Infinity War, some of us, not all of us, a lot of us have been asking, just in general, where the Marvel universe is going to go, what they're going to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what are their options. I mean, we're up in space now. We're dealing with cosmic level stuff. What can they do to keep people piqued and interested, and with the characters and everything? Well, one of the options that was just released is that Marvel Studios is developing an Eternals movie featuring some of Jack Kirby's famous kind of godlike cosmic beings, the Beyonders, the Eternals. I mean, these just kind of eternity, the embodiment of the universe, those types of things. Which is one direction they can go. I mean, they can keep going higher in terms of the scope and the broadness of the universe. I personally think this is one that they need to hold off on for a little bit, at least until Marvel lands the film rights back to Galactus, and particularly the Silver Surfer. Actually, Jerry was kind enough. He brought a copy of The Eternals by Neil Gaiman in with it. Neil Gaiman being a very prominent and genius, high concept comic writer.
John Romita Jr. as well.
Is that J.R.J.R.?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually J.R.J.R. that I like.
It's actually I was gonna mention it. Yeah, no, this is actually the only Eternals that I've read. I tried reading the stuff that came after it, but it just kind of fell short of what the story gave me. But I was gonna point out the giant beings in it. They're Celestials, right?
Yes.
And they've already shown those in Guardians 1 whenever they were showing the visions and stuff.
Well, and the head of nowhere is the head of a celestial.
Yeah, and nowhere is the head of a Celestial.
Well, and I want to say, wasn't Ego technically a Celestial?
I'm
no,
not 100% sure.
no, he was something else. He was like a
What he was in the comics is not what they said he was in the
Yeah.
film. So they kind of
Yeah.
they've deviated from that. But I thought
like,
he was a he was
He was a
Celestial.
living planet.
Because like you could kind of argue like until he formed a physical form, he could argue it was probably celestial level consciousness.
Yeah.
He just didn't have their like kind of like he never had a physical body, neither did they. But as soon as he did, he kind of lost it. I guess you could say because like I know very little about the Eternals, but they seem like cosmic beings that aren't a physical manifestation, more like a power entity.
You are going to make me go back and watch Guardians 2 to figure this out, aren't you?
Yes.
No. And no one should have to watch that movie twice unless they want to.
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it both times.
Yeah,
Fuck
same.
you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
The Southern
Sean.
Fried Geekery Civil War just happened.
I said you shouldn't have to unless you want to.
I know.
Silver Surfer and Galactus are big parts of that greater, larger element, though. And as far as Kirby creations, Galactus is one of my favorite Kirby creations.
Mhm.
If I'm just completely wrong on that, I think Galactus is a Kirby creation. Just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful character. The art design of him is just insane. It's out of this world. I don't want them to get up to that level without being able to give me Galactus. But here's the thing about that, though. There is a merger still in the works. It is not complete yet between Fox Studios and between Marvel/Disney. Could this possibly mean that Kevin Feige knows something that we don't? I mean, obviously, he knows lots of things we don't. He's the president of Marvel Studios. Do you think that this is his way of hinting us? And Sean has confirmed that
Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
made Galactus.
Fantastic Four, number 48.
So then Jack Kirby.
I'll punch you.
Don't speak ill of the not well of the ill. Right now.
That's a whole different conversation. I'm not going to dive into.
All right.
But do you guys think that maybe that is Kevin Feige? And I actually mean Kevin Feige this time, and I'm not saying Kevin Feige in lieu of saying the guy whose name I still can't remember that started us off. Jon Favreau, who started us off with Iron Man. That I just that I just could not remember his name last episode, so I kept calling him Kevin Feige.
He's been in almost all of his movies.
And it's wonderful. And he made The Jungle Book, which is one of my favorite live action Disney adaptations. So Mr. Favreau, please don't hate me.
I don't have any inside information, but I believe the deal's done.
You think it is?
I think it is. I think they're just waiting for all the contracts to be signed, but I think the deal's done. I think Fox is bought.
I can't confirm the sources, but I'm pretty sure I saw an article. I didn't share it because I don't think it was like I can't remember if they said rumored or not. That's why I probably didn't share it. They said after Dark Phoenix and New Mutants, Fox is done with Marvel movies, other than Deadpool, because they didn't get rid of that. So I think after those two come out, we're not going to see anything other than Deadpool or maybe some other random property Marvel doesn't care about. But I think they are coming home.
I will say that I'm probably really okay with them not getting rid of Deadpool because then he's going to start showing up in all of our MCU stuff. And I don't know if I'm down with all that. Nothing against it. They've been doing a great job with Deadpool.
It depends on which property they would use him in. If they use him in something like Ant-Man, I'm not going to hate it because that seems like it's a good fit. If they try to put him in something more serious, for the level of seriousness that Marvel is going in, I'd have problems with it. But I mean,
because Thor Ragnarok was so serious.
That's not a serious movie. I think Deadpool. You can work with that.
And then there were laughs. Correct. You can have both. Comedy and tragedy. That's
I'm
no
personally fine with them leaving Deadpool in his own universe.
They're doing a great
Having
job.
said
Keep him in a
that,
box.
they better address the fact that Josh Brolin is both
In both?
Cable and Thanos, or they're missing the boat.
I know you don't watch the trailers. Do you just want me to tell you?
Sure.
He literally calls him Thanos
Okay.
in
That's
Deadpool 2.
But
And another one I was going to go ahead and say it. Then when Cable's getting like kicking his ass, goes, "Man, you're so dark. You sure you're not from the DC universe?"
I love the
That
fourth
movie's gotta be
wall.
hype.
I love the meta juxtaposition and that kind of stuff. It's wonderful. But again, I hope that's what it is. I hope this is Kevin Feige's way of saying, hey, we don't have it mapped out. We haven't greenlit an Eternals movie, but it is in production because we were fully expecting to get the rights to use these film characters that they need to, and including the Fantastic Four. Because again, I don't think you can do the Eternals. I don't think you can do these high concept, large concept creatures without the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I'm not a Fantastic Four fan, but if they're really going to expand on the cosmic universe, we don't need Guardians being the main. Like, as much as I like Guardians, it needs to be the Fantastic Four. Like, because they are the flagship space team, and like I said, I think a more serious team like that would be better for the cosmic universe.
Well, they're the flagship exploration team.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. It's like that's kind of what I was getting at. It was like,
Well, if
I
you're
love Guardians, but we don't need the wisecracking for every single cosmic story they're going to tell. And Fantastic Four would be the better vehicle to really get out there.
If you're going to tell a Galactus story, you've got to have Fantastic Four. It's
Absolutely.
just required.
Without a cloud. No cloud.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Please, just if you're going to give us Galactus, give us Galactus. But don't give us a world-eating cloud, space cloud.
I mean, you could say the same thing for Doctor Strange and Dormammu. I don't like cloud monsters in movies. I actually want you do the work, guys.
I want to see Fin Fang Foom.
I mean, and that's kind of where I stand on it. Is I don't want our next event to be another space threat. I would rather it come from home.
If you were to get the Fantastic Four back, you could do a Fantastic Four Fin Fang Foom movie and then have that all bring the Avengers into it.
And if you think about it, that would one of the best things about getting the Fantastic Four in is all the rogues gallery that they would bring. Mole Man, Fin Fang Foom, Galactus, Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
Like you just got so much good villainry there.
You do.
Mole Man is to this day my favorite Fantastic Four villain, and I have an amazing plan for what that movie would be.
You spoke of that last episode, and I thought about it, and I think you're right. I think that's
Absolutely.
a perfect Fantastic Four
Hey, Marvel
concept.
people, if you're listening, I have ideas. I can write things, and I need money, so we can work something out. College is expensive. I would like to make my husband feel plush and bougie, and I can't do that on my meager budget. So
I don't know what some of those words were that you just said.
Some
Just roll with it.
a villain that I'd like to see them bring in that we haven't seen even in the comics for a while, unless I'm mistaken. You guys read so much more Marvel than I do. But Kang the Conqueror. I know that there was a thing with him where he potentially died, but he's from the future and he always finds a way to come back.
there's always a thing with him where he potentially dies.
Yeah.
He just got annihilated, so hopefully, but again, he's a time traveler. So
Speaking of that word, Annihilus.
Yeah.
He's a big bad in Fantastic Four.
And that's another cosmic threat too. But that annihilation wave was incredible, and that's kind of a thing where you need to bring in Adam Warlock and you need to bring in Captain Marvel and Nova because those were the big ones that fought him. And then the Guardians were there. That's actually Annihilation was where the newest team of Guardians, the one that the movies are based off now, came into play. Where they got
it's. I don't have a problem with another cosmic level threat as long as the threat is 100% pointed at Earth next.
Yeah.
Right.
If that makes sense. So a Galactus story, if it's done right, that sort of thing.
And another one that we talked about that I really like is a supernatural threat. Mephisto.
Yeah.
Just any of the dark
Well, I think you
characters.
get more of that. Maybe not Mephisto. I don't know. Mephisto is one of those characters that could go either way. So you can either have a horror element to it, or it can be a interplanar Doctor Strange kind of thing. All right. Well, we're talking about movies. It is the weekend after that we get Marvel's Infinity War coming out. So I think we have to acknowledge that it is a thing that exists into the world. 3 out of the 4 of us have seen it. Jerry, you're actually going to go see it tonight.
Mhm.
I'm jealous because I never get to experience it for the first time again. I wish I had that opportunity to get all those emotions. It's amazing. I won't get into it any more than that. So we were actually going to talk about it on the show this week, but we got together and decided to postpone talking about the details of the movie for a few reasons. The first of all being that, for the most part, a lot of us at this table, at least I think everyone who's seen it, largely agree that this might be the best thing to come out of Marvel Studios so far. And that's saying a lot. We set a very high bar for that. We want to dedicate an entire episode to it. And so that's what you can kind of look forward to next week. So, spoilers next week, guys. And we are going to get to it. But also, Jerry hasn't seen it yet, and we don't want to spoil things for him. And we also didn't want him to not be a part of this show. There are, we like hearing Jerry talk. So we,
I was waiting for the butt.
We like having you on the show, and you bring something important to it. So we didn't want to make you have to not be a part of it, just so we can get into it.
I appreciate it. I would have earmuffed it through the whole section.
That's hard to do. But also, our listeners out there, guys, the movie came out Thursday night. It hasn't been that long. When you're listening to this, it's at least Monday night, Tuesday morning. Most people haven't had the opportunity to see it yet, I think, and so we don't want to run the risk of spoiling it for somebody who might not have seen it, because they ignored the fact that we said spoiler warnings or something. But also, we don't want you to not listen to our latest episode just because you haven't seen the movie either. So we're just going to wait, and we're going to give it a week to marinate.
So be forewarned. We are giving you a week to watch this movie. We appreciate everyone who comes in to listen to us every week, but motherfucking spoilers next week.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really talk about this movie without having some spoilers. It is my favorite by far of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, none of them are even close, in my opinion.
No, my mind is telling me, all right, it may still just be new movie hype, and it was amazing, but it may have already topped Homecoming, which was my number one that we discussed last week.
I did finally watch Homecoming, by the way.
You did?
Yeah. So that brings me to another point. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, we all dived into what our favorite moments and our favorite films was out of the entire MCU. A really great episode. To my surprise, there wasn't a lot of overlap. I think there was only one or two movies that we actually went across each other on, which was wonderful. It shows just a depth of the things that we like and our different personalities, and really, really fun episode. Actually, once I get these shows edited, I don't largely go back and listen to them in their entirety. I actually went back and listened to it, and number one, I realized that I apparently need to know Jon Favreau's name, but also I really, really enjoyed listening to you guys explain why you love the things that you do, and thought it's just a fun episode. Just go back and listen to it. If you haven't yet, do it.
Well, I agree. I think it shows exactly that while the four of us have a lot of similar taste, or we wouldn't be sitting at this table together, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is large enough that four people that have similar tastes can sit down and come up with top three movies that are different from each other.
Absolutely. And it's just, and Jerry hit on it last week, and just getting into a little bit of it. That's the beauty of what Marvel's done with the superhero genre, is they're not just giving us superhero movies that only attract one bracket of fandom. They're using other genres. They're using the spy genre. They're using sci-fi genre. They're using young adult genre, magic. They're using just all of these different tropes of movies. I mean, they're basically giving us Ocean's 11 at one point of superheroes, and they're tapping into the different things of cinema that make different markets come to it. And I think that's indicative of the four of us and why we like the things we are, that we so enjoyed. So yeah, anyway, that's my shameless plug for get people to go back and listen to it again, and because it was a really good time. But on the topic of Infinity War, you cannot talk about this movie or this concept without talking about the career of Jim Starlin. He is largely responsible for the Marvel Comics universe in the cosmic scale. He created many, many, many of these characters that we see. And even if he did not create them, he took what Jack Kirby made and he added some flesh to those bones. He brought them out. He characterized things that Jack didn't have time to, or was just unable to, or that Stan Lee didn't put that much attention on to these concept designs. So I thought it might be pertinent, and I thought it might be important and kind of necessary to talk about what we like or don't like about Jim Starlin, kind of talk about his career, some of the books that he's written. So if people out there who have already seen Infinity War or who have not, but they want to know where in the comics these things are, we kind of flesh those out a little bit and talk about how important he was to what they're going or they have seen on film so far.
TIL, he wrote A Death in the Family.
Thanks for spoiling my.
Oh, sorry. It was the first book on the list.
After a brief Google of what I actually know of his work besides Infinity Gauntlet, that was literally the only thing I knew.
Yes.
Jerry just crushes souls.
Did I just ruin what you both were going to talk about?
Well, no, now Caleb can do his book report that I'm sure he has written on his laptop.
I didn't write a book report.
And it's funny because it's not even the one that I was going to talk about. Because,
Oh, wow.
Well, thanks, Jerry.
Even more
Why don't
piece
you
of shit.
wait till we get to that part, Jerry?
Do you guys
Yeah,
want to spoil what I was going to talk about?
No, fuck you. And your stupid face.
There's nothing but love between us guys. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Jim Starlin for a minute. There was a ton of Starlin in this film, just a metric shit ton of Starlin. It was mostly pulled from 1991's The Infinity Gauntlet, which is funny because there is a set of comics, a collected edition called Infinity War, that is not what in the film Infinity War is based off of. It's a completely separate thing. If you want to see the comics, if you want to read and experience the comics that this was pulled out of, you should go read Infinity Gauntlet. It came out in 1991. I want to say it was written by Starlin, but it was drawn by George Perez and Ron Lim,
Quite possible.
maybe.
That sounds right. I will.
Yeah, George Perez, Ron Lim.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I'm a huge George Perez fan, so the art to me is what makes that book fantastic. But I want to say George only did the first 2 issues, and then he checked out because of some contractual obligations. Ron Lim is no slouch at all. You know, and in some regards, Ron's style was more fitting to what that book was anyway. And so I have no problem with that switch. Here's the thing about Starlin, though. Like I said, he's the crown prince of the Marvel Cosmic Universe. He's second only to Jack Kirby in terms of crafting the content and the direction of what takes place out among the Marvel stars. I kind of hold an unpopular view about Starlin, though. I think he was a better concept creator than he was a writer. I love the ideas that Starlin comes up with. I love the directions that he sends us in. The characters he came up with are incredible, and they're groundbreaking. I just don't think he executes his stories as a writer very well. And you know, lots of people highly disagree with that, and that's fine.
Actually, I can... Granted, like I said, my literal knowledge of it is the Infinity Gauntlet, the original comic book.
Yeah.
Definitely a Stephen King kind of feel. Like a great start, great all that. The ending kind of just putters out.
Yeah, and other writers have gone through and fleshed out characters like Thanos, and they've kind of given them the persona. And I went back and read Infinity Gauntlet digitally not too long ago, just in preparation for the film. Thanos is kind of a annoying, bratty, petulant child who is kind of just pissed off that Mistress Death won't bang him.
Yeah.
He's kind of like this modern day Maninist, men's right activist movement kind of thing that you see on the internet, which I'm going to destroy the world because women don't like me for me because I'm an asshole.
He's tired of being put in the friend zone.
Yeah, which exactly. Yeah, you know, he's
Mistress Death.
He's the purple embodiment of rape culture in some ways. I'm not joking. I mean, I fully mean that. The way he's written, that is absolutely that mindset. Which we live in the age of the internet, so now all these toxic masculinity fanboys are going to go, "Yeah, I'm Thanos," and no, motherfucker, you're not. Yeah, I just don't think he executed the stories very well, at least in terms of his Infinity work. However, caveat, following the 50-50 rule, I'm not going to just say I don't like somebody without mentioning things I do like. I very much enjoyed his Silver Surfer run from the early 90s, where he debuted some of these famous characters, and he actually debuted the Infinity Gauntlet. I think it first appeared in Silver Surfer 44. Fact check me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it was 44. somewhere in that. It was between 40 and 47. I'm just not personally into the cosmic stuff. It's not my jam. But there is, side note, there is a character that Starlin created that a lot of people I don't think realize that he created, that I personally love. And I'm actually really, really, really pissed off that we haven't seen a live action version of him because it's primed and ready for it. And I'm kind of curious if you guys want to guess who I'm talking about without looking at my computer.
Is it Adam Warlock?
It's not Adam Warlock.
Oh, well.
He didn't create Adam Warlock. He reimagined Adam Warlock.
It was a shot in the dark.
Oh, okay. I honestly don't have any clue.
You don't know?
Was it?
So was number 44.
It was?
You're absolutely
Okay,
right.
see, look at me. Hey, me.
But the gems appeared in different comics.
Nice, very cool. Sean, you want to any guess what character he might have created that I absolutely love that we have not seen live yet that we should have?
Namor?
Not Namor. Nope.
Okay.
That
You
was
love
Was
Namor.
it Wonder Man?
it was not Wonder Man.
Oh, wow.
It's Shang-Chi.
Oh, I
Jim-
didn't
So
know
you
you
were a fan?
Yeah, I love Shang-Chi. Absolutely. Yeah.
I saw that when I was Googling him, but I didn't know.
I feel
one
like
of
he
your
should have
characters.
at least been on in some Netflix.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to say. Shang-Chi was invented by Jim Starlin and Steve Englehart in a comic called Marvel Special Edition number 15 way back in 1973. I can't for the life of me figure out why we don't have him in the Marvel Netflix stuff yet, especially in Iron Fist, which seems like where he would fit just perfectly.
Yeah, Shang-Chi should show up in Iron Fist and teach the actor how to do martial arts.
Yeah, seriously. That would be great. I would rather see Shang-Chi and Colleen Wing together and no offense to anybody who might have actually thoroughly enjoyed the Iron Fist series. It had its moments of some really good stuff. Just to me, it didn't land, and that's largely part of why. I don't know why we haven't seen that. It seems like it's the perfect fit.
Well, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of characters out there, and they're slowly getting them to us.
They are.
So we're starting to get, as we get into Phase 4 of the cinematic universe, the end of Phase 3, and starting Phase 4 in the next couple of years, you're going to start to see some of the, I don't want to say lesser known, but we're getting away from the core characters already and starting to move further and further out on the spectrum of the characters that are out there. You're going to start to see some of these.
Absolutely.
Because they're trying to keep it fresh, and I appreciate that. So
I do too. When you're dealing with the kung fu elements of the Marvel stuff, to me there is no clearer embodiment of that than Shang-Chi. He is the deadly hands of kung fu.
he is. In all honesty, though, they've had a hard time keeping a Shang-Chi comic book going.
That's true.
They've tried to launch one 3 or 4 times over the past decade, and it just never really gains any ground or momentum. So,
Right.
But to go along with like what Caleb said though, and it's true, like I'm a huge martial arts movie fan.
Right.
But like honestly it doesn't translate well into comic book form. But I think a TV series with a really good martial artist actor could actually make the comic book relevant.
What nationality is Donnie in?
Donnie Yen is Chinese.
See, there we go.
Dear Sean, I could not disagree with you more that it doesn't translate well into comic book form. Oh, my buddy.
Hey, don't get me wrong. Like, I get action scenes in comics. I've seen great fights that have played out, but the intricacies of, especially kung fu specifically, I've never seen. You can maybe show me an example I haven't seen, but it's never been translated properly.
The Immortal Iron Fist, which isn't kung fu, but it's martial arts.
Yeah, but like the subtleties of the drawing, because you can only do so much panel to panel, and I get that. But even like as big a fan of manga as I am, I've literally read a series about just martial arts. But even then, you don't get the fluidity you get from cinema.
Did you ever read any of the Marvel Comics Presents, which was a series that it ran for over 200 issues? It was kind of an anthology series. I'm going to go long box diving when I get home. I'm going to find you some of the short stories that they have in there that's Shang-Chi. You don't have to love them by any means, but I think you should experience those. They're really good, man. Really, really good, buddy. And to me, that's where I fell in love with that.
I do get what you're saying. Though.
It's
really, storyline absolutely can be done in a book. I just mean people watch kung fu movies. A lot of people watch kung fu movies for the fights, for the choreography.
Yeah.
And that just rarely translates very well in book form.
You have to have a special kind of artist who really understands how to make their art fluid.
Right.
And that is hard. A lot of artists have, it's a stagnant page. It's a static page, I should say. It does not have to be stagnant. And a lot of artists have a hard time showing that motion, making the page move, and showing that fluidity of the characters. And you're absolutely right. So sometimes it does not translate well.
I will argue that what makes a good comic more so than the action, though, is a compelling character. And getting the character written properly would probably override the action scenes using that fluidity. And I just don't think they've nailed Shang-Chi in a long time.
Oh, absolutely. But like I said, the original reason I made that statement, though, like I said, because you said they've tried to kick him off, and maybe it was bad writing, but I think a broad audience would, a Netflix audience would see a good thing, a good kung fu.
I do think a visual representation
would draw them into the
absolutely.
That was the original statement.
Yeah. And so my last thing before I get off, before I kind of pass the mic and we let you other guys drop some Starlin stuff on it. One of the things I love about doing this podcast, and I put up a status about this on Facebook for those of you who follow me on Facebook. One of the things I love is that you find out so much cool, nuanced, neat stuff when you're doing research. There is a writer named Michael Chabon that I am a huge fan of. I love the guy. He writes some of my favorite short stories and novels that I've just now kind of discovered. And he's been doing this, I think he's actually passed away now. I'm not sure. He's been a writer and he's had fame for a long time. But Jim Starlin actually did a comic book with him. And I did not know that Michael Chabon, his characters translate well to comics. He writes in a very comic style, but he writes prose. They did a story together off of his book, off of a novel called The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. And this came out from, I think, Dark Horse in 2004 is when the book came out. It's called The Amazing Adventures of the Escapist. And it's an adaptation of that novel that Starlin wrote and drew under the direction of Mr. Chabon. It's called Michael Chabon Presents The Amazing Adventures of the Escapist, published by Dark Horse 2004. It was a really good way. I was really excited to discover this because it's actually funny. I actually did. You guys know I'm a creative writing major. I'm trying to get into law school using that, but I'm doing a lot of writing exercises and short story and prose writing. I actually did an exercise last week to where you take a piece of prose and you don't copy it, but you try to emulate the style. And I did it off of a short story that Michael Chabon wrote called Werewolves in Their Youth. And I'm working on it right now. It's going to be one of the things I use for a major project later on. It was just making that very timely connection for me. So that's what I love about doing this, the research and stuff that goes into this podcast, is you find these just cool things.
Few researchers for the podcast.
What a loser.
Jerry mentioned it earlier. My favorite Jim Starlin story, and it sounds like probably Sean's as well, is Down in the Family.
The only other one I've read other than Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird to talk about Jim Starlin and think about him writing Batman because he is so known for the cosmic stuff and bringing us such great characters as Thanos and Drax the Destroyer and Gamora. And, he really developed characters or created very good characters that were later fleshed out by other people, as you mentioned earlier. One thing that he did, one of my favorite characters that he did was we talked about this a little earlier too, but he took Adam Warlock and completely reimagined him and gave him new ideas behind that character, presented him in a new way, brought him into the main Marvel universe as opposed to being this concept guy that's out there, but brought him in as a way to control the Infinity Stones. Go ahead.
So when you're talking about reimagining, this is just some ignorance in the history and the stuff that I have. Am I correct when I think that before Jim Starlin got a hold of him, he didn't create the character, but I think he gave him his name.
I think he gave him the name Adam. I think he was just Warlock before that.
And before that, he was just known as him.
Quite possibly.
Which is a which they used in the second Guardians movie. At the end of it, they show him, and that's actually supposed to be...
That's absolutely right.
I think he may have named him. Yeah, I'm not sure. I was just wondering if you knew that.
I do not know that for sure because I haven't read any of the early Warlock stuff, previous to the Jim Starlin stuff. The concept, and I don't love the cosmic universe.
Yeah,
So Jerry really does. Sean, I'm so on it. For me, it's hit or miss. But I do love the old '90s Adam Warlock. The Warlock series was really good.
That was Starlin too, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
So, it's some of my favorite stuff from the cosmic stuff. And then, as far as his influence on the film, I mean, it's kind of liking at asking if Brubaker's stories had an influence on the Captain America movies.
Right.
You can't have a movie about Thanos and not talk about. Of course, everything he did isn't. You see Jim Starlin throughout that movie. Now, yeah, the characters are more in depth than what he gave us originally, but you don't have any of this without what he did.
No, it really is a culmination of him and Jonathan Hickman's work on those characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just kind of like piggyback what you said, because like I said, I've read Infinity Gauntlet, of course, and that was huge influence on the film, which we'll get more to next week. But yes, I mean, he's responsible for at least two of my most memorable, seminal books series. Was Infinity Gauntlet and A Death in the Family. I mean, he killed off. Well, he didn't kill, but he was a part of arguably the first fan interaction comic book.
Yeah, it was
with the whole call in to kill Jason Todd.
Yeah.
And they called in droves.
I'm still pissed off about that. Y'all did my boy wrong.
He's turned into a better character.
He's better as Red Hood than he was Robin.
But I mean, on top of that, just because they were willing to accept that, I mean, phone call or not, he still wrote a story of Joker bashing someone's head in with a crowbar.
Yeah.
A controversial story back then, and drew a lot of attention into comic books back then. Like, the man just likes a glimpse over his work, and the two stories I really do know. The man just writes phenomenal, attention-grabbing stories, and it's great.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't deny his influence on the comic book industry.
No, at all. And I feel bad for anybody who tries. They would just get shouted down.
And one last thing, because I didn't want to take up too much time reading them all off, Google his name to see all the fucking awards this man has won over his career.
Oh, yeah.
It's numerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the favorite series that I've actually read, and it was only maybe last year or so, but it's been out since the year I was born, apparently, was Cosmic Odyssey. And the thing that intrigued me in it wasn't Jim Starlin to begin with, but I really, it's one of those things where you read so many things and you're like, man, I'm really digging into this. And then you find out that it's all created by the same person. You're like, oh, right. Well, there we go. But it's Jim Starlin, Mike Mignola on pencils, and Carlos Garzon is the inker, and the colorist is Steve Olive.
Nice.
So the story behind it is essentially Darkseid finds a comatose Mettaton. He finds out about this this huge darkness, basically it's called the anti-life equation, and it's this dark universe that's trying to spread and get into ours and destroy everything. So he joins together with the new gods, and they form a pact. They go to Earth and gather a bunch of heroes together. Those heroes team up with some of the new gods, and they spread out to different planets to try to stop this thing from happening, because it has key points that if it destroys certain planets, then it'll come into their universe. And this is really badass.
Yeah.
It introduced me to a lot of new characters, because I wasn't super privy on New Gods before this, but it brought a lot of that into light. But it was just really cool, because it had Superman, Martian Manhunter, Starfire, Batman, Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, and then a mysterious character, Mr. Blood, which is Jason Blood, that was Etrigan, which was his role, and it was really interesting. And but it was only a 4-issue series. They just started putting it back into print in trade paperback form. So
I'll have to pick that one up.
Definitely recommend it.
Well, that speaks more, again, to how much of a protege of Kirby that Starlin was. Kirby created the Fourth World stuff. And Starlin doesn't get enough credit for how much he dabbled in that stuff. But he did. If you look up his biography, if you look up his discography and see everything that he's worked on, there's just an entire list of DC Vertigo Element Fourth World stuff that he's manipulated, played with, and wrote some amazing stories. He just is more famous for creating Thanos and for these Infinity characters, which you see in the film. But yeah, definitely need to go look up some of that Fourth World stuff and dabble into that, especially with how popular Mr. Miracle and stuff is right now, and that world is with Tom King writing it.
Well, and he never shied away from, or he always gave credit to his predecessors and said, "Listen, Kirby's where I got my influences from. The Lee Kirby stuff. It really, he always was that guy that was willing to say, hey, I didn't live in a vacuum before this.
Right.
I'm borrowing from what I know." Which is Thanos is very heavily borrowed from Darkseid.
Yes.
Totally.
Some people would even say flat out stolen, but he's not. He's a different character. But a lot of stuff is very, as happens between Marvel and DC, they have a lot of similar characters, but Thanos is very heavily borrowed.
Well, and they share a lot, and I think that's, we look at these things spread across the board, but I also think we forget sometimes how small of a community the comics world is in terms of creators. I mean, now everybody and their brother has a nerd shirt that they bought from Walmart, but as far as the creator aspect of it is, and especially in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when these things were being created, there was not a large community of people working on these things, and they cross-mixed a lot. I'm thinking of Man-Thing and Swamp Thing, and those two characters were created at the same time, and they're both very, very famous, and they're both very, very similar because Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson were roommates at the time. Not Bernie Wrightson. The creator of Swamp Thing.
Len Wein is the creator.
And the creator of Man-Thing was my memory's not serving me. Those two individuals, those two creators were roommates. They shared an apartment together, and they each said that, hey, like, we did not collaborate on these things, but hanging out, eating dinner together, talking, these things just kind of flowed over one another. And so we both developed a very similar conceptualized character. And yeah, so I think that's a lot of why there is this overlap.
Man-Thing created by Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, and Jerry Conway.
Jerry Conway. Okay.
With artist Gray Morrow on the first.
Nice. Yeah, so I mean, you get that they borrow from each other. They play in each other's sandboxes. And that's something that you can expect when you do have characters that aren't owned by the individual, they're owned by a company. And so you have multiple people coming and playing with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it. And, it gives us great arguments, who's better, Man-Thing or Swamp Thing, who's better, Aquaman or Namor, or, so on and so forth. It's Green Arrow and Hawkeye. There's so many of them out there that you can compare. But it gives us those little arguments, of course.
I mean, the real answer to that question is the Heap. I'm kidding. I'm joking. Don't hate me. Do you know who the Heap is?
I don't know.
Oh, you need to, because it's an Eric Larson thing.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Look up the Heap.
Bad 90s image books.
Yeah, so
I reached out a dragon. I love bad 90s image books.
If you haven't gone to see this movie, you absolutely should. All of us love it. It's really funny. Some friends of mine and a couple that have listened to our episodes since day one, Joy and John, text me on Thursday night when they got done with the movie and just like, oh my God, like, are y'all going to talk about this? And we are. I know John loved Thor. Joy was a big fan of the representation of Thanos.
Yeah, I have a huge man crush on Thor now.
I think yeah.
I mean, it started at the end of. I'm not spoiling anything. It started at the end of Ragnarok.
Yeah, you have to. I think you need to go watch Ragnarok if you haven't seen it yet.
Thor. Oh my gosh,
it was just adorable. Then they were texting me about it, like, oh my God, it was fun. It was good listener interaction too, and I love that. I love when people talk about the show with us. But yeah, go see that film.
Ooh, Caleb was wrong.
Todd McFarlane. He was in Spawn.
Oh, Todd McFarlane, not a Larson thing.
Fuck you.
Sean giving Caleb the celebratory middle finger.
Otherwise, I was slipping if I didn't know he was a savage fucking dragon.
I mean, I'm not the only person that mistakes Larson for McFarlane.
Is that his middle name?
So.
Yes.
Ooh. Ouch.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, no, McFarlane can learn a lot from Larson drawing Venom.
That's a valid point. I mean, seriously, I'll give you
But
that.
I know
one.
what you're saying.
I'll give you that one. All right. Well, so for the past few weeks, we've been really, really, really busy. There have been 2 cons. There have been a lot of stuff going on, diving back into comics, talking about movies and everything else. There's been something missing at our table, and I'm hungry for it. So why don't Sean and Jerry serve us up a big bowl of manga ramen?
It's
real quick.
actually kind of great because we prepared a theme song for this. So you ready?
Yeah, all right.
1, 2,
I'm so
3.
sorry for this.
Just kidding.
That will require homework, and we know we don't do homework. No, but yes.
That's the way show notes that had notes and lyrics. on
Other than kidnapping Caleb and doing anime convention, this is our second full episode of Manga Ramen together.
Well, and just before you dive into it, for listeners who may not have listened to the show before, why don't you real quick tell everybody what manga ramen is, like what they can expect to hear from that?
This is me and Jerry's segment where we get to rant about anime, manga, and all things Japanese, really.
Yeah.
Nice.
We get to take control.
For 15 whole minutes. This is not counting.
Yeah, no, this doesn't
This
count.
does not count.
Starting timer.
No, last episode that we talked about My Hero Academia.
Mhm.
And now we're going to go in a almost complete opposite direction.
Yeah, we're going to go dark.
With this is going to get weird, y'all. We want to talk about Gantz. That's Gantz. It's kind of hard to.
Is that like a
Weird.
cousin of Craig? I mean,
Yes, this is Lance on Gantz. This is a manga and anime created by Hiryo Oku. It went 37 volumes. That's the collected edition, the trade paperbacks for you Western comic people of the manga, with 26 anime episodes. It had a live action film, a novel, and an amazing, it may still be on Netflix, CG movie called Gantz O, which is amazing to check out.
Mhm.
I can kind of give Jerry, why don't you give us a brief explanation as best you can of Gantz?
Well, I think it's perfect because I think I've read it like sooner than you have.
Definitely more reason.
Yeah, and it was one of those things of like I've always wanted to get into it, and I think I've only saw a couple of episodes of the anime, and then people just kept talking about it. So finally, I was like, I'm gonna delve into this. I read how many issues or
At
how
least
many
200
chapters?
something.
Yeah, I read every single chapter of that in like under a week.
Right.
Like I was into it. It starts off with a high school character. He's waiting for a train, and he's just basically like talking shit about all the people around and everything. There's a drunk guy walking around. He's just normal guy. Sees this cute girl, and then he sees somebody that he recognizes. The drunk guy falls onto the tracks. He doesn't want this guy to recognize him, and then all of a sudden, the guy that he knew jumps down the tracks to help him. Like everybody's just watching, and he decides like, all right, I can help this too. And they're trying to get this guy out of the tracks, finally get him out, but the train is on its way.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh well, it's gonna stop at the end of the track, so let's just run. Turns out it was the express, and they both get fucking creamed by this train. And the next scene is his head floating in the air.
Yeah.
And he's like looking at the other guy's head. And he's like, "Oh man, he's decapitated. That's so uncool." And then all of a sudden, he wakes up in this room with this giant black ball and like a bunch of other people.
Right.
And that's how the story starts.
Yeah, and it's a hell of an opener because like clearly they're kind of establishing his name is Kei as like a main character. Then his friend Masaru, who we kind of get annoyed at, and they're killed within the first probably 10 pages.
Yeah.
Clearly decapitated in graphic detail. This is a very detailed, very dark manga. It had been a room with a giant black ball and other people.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, because it's a long going manga and anime. They're basically when certain people die, they end up in a room with that black sphere, who gives them some equipment and says, "Hey, go kill this thing, and you'll earn points."
Mm-hmm.
If you earn 100 points, you have 3 options. You can either A, be brought back to life with no memory of this. B, get a unique, powerful weapon to keep playing the game. Or number 3, and this plays a big part into the series, which we're not going to get into in spoilers, we want people to go check this out.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring someone who's died in the game back to life.
And one of the crazy things about it, they get this bounty. This ball is just basically like it brings up a display, and it's kind of like jokey because it gives them all these like joke-esque gamer tag names.
Right, like one of the first heroines you see, she actually, if I'm remembering correctly, she died by slitting her wrist in the bathtub. So she actually shows up in the game room completely naked, and they call her Booby Girl.
Yeah,
I think was the nickname the mall gave her.
Yeah,
yeah. It's like it has that little weird humor into it, and like you'll see the alien like you just reveal that they are hunting down monsters or alien type looking creatures, and they'll be like, what was it, Onion Kid? Look like a kid with an onion head.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, this is going to be easy to kill.
Is that character related to Potato Girl that I met at the anime convention?
No, but it probably is somewhere on the internet.
Potato Girl.
Somewhere there's some fanfic.
Shout out to Potato Girl. But as they learn quickly and throughout the series, appearances are deceiving because they get to Onion Kid and it turned into a monster that just wrecks a lot of them.
It actually how it happened was it was his dad. He was the child.
You know, as soon as I said, I was like, wait, it was the dad.
And he was just completely fucking scary. Because, like, all these people, like, found it, and they were like, oh, sweet. You know, we're just going to fucking kill this thing. And they were just, like, torturing him.
Because he's like,
not
when he, like,
character
cries
or
and I
anything.
have onions or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, he was being it was a very weird scenario.
Yeah, and they had, like, these people that had died that were really, like, just pieces of shit.
I think
just
it was
real
either
assholes.
some Yakuza or at least, like, maybe some gang affiliated.
Yeah,
kind of
and
thing.
so, like, all these other people were just trying to get out. And that kind of opened up another thing because once they hit a certain point, something started beeping, and you find out that they have a zone that they're stuck in, and if they go past it, their head explodes. So they have a time limit for when they have to defeat this thing, and if they defeat it, as long as their heart's beating, doesn't matter what happened to their body, how mangled it is or anything, they come back whole, and they can basically carry their day on as usual.
Was there a movie made about this?
There was a CG one, and that's on Netflix. And there was a live action one. I don't think it's ever come over here to the States.
You might also be thinking of Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Because it had
it's a similar kind of like. Yeah.
But the funny or the crazy thing about this is after the game ends, the door to the room that they were in unlocks, and they just go about their normal lives. And at any point during the day, they can get transported back to this room and have to do another game.
Wow. And the battles take place in like the real world, but it's like a separate dimension.
Yeah.
Because like people can't see them battling these creatures, but like you see some of the effects though, like when they destroy a building in the battle, that happened in the real world. You're just like building collapsed out of nowhere, reported on the news. They'll see it on the next day for those that survive.
It's thrown off as like terrorist attacks or something like that.
So it's, I mean, and it's a long running series with. Don't get attached to anyone. They constantly bring it, and every time someone dies, some new characters, even a dog. A dog showed up.
And a panda. At one point.
It was a panda. Yeah. It, like I said, it's dark, it's violent, it's highly sexual. Surprisingly enough, there is like a lot of them are, especially like Kay. I'm not getting into details, but literally knows he's gonna die, has to keep coming back to play the game. Heart's kind of broken this time. There's another chick there who wants to bang him before they go out, and they do.
Only in anime and manga can you follow a sentence that says, hey, there's dogs and pandas and it gets dark and violent and hypersexual.
That's manga.
And about halfway through, they kind of flip it on its head, and they give you more information, and the story just drastically changes.
Like, there is a reason this game's going on. It's still against their will, but like I said, these are people who either killed themselves or died in some way.
Yeah.
To find out what's going on would spoil the big turning point of this. But it's long and short. It's amazing. It's well drawn. All of them is done. Like, there is a spin-off manga that's going to be getting published later this year, I believe, or maybe even this summer, called Gantz
Zero or G?
Gantz G, which is going to be a spin-off, which is like another team in another city that takes place before the final events of the original manga.
Yeah. And you mentioned before Gantz Zero that was on Netflix.
You see, I think it's actually an O because it takes place in Osaka.
That's true. And that was kind of a fun turning point, is like they got so far and lost so many people and all this stuff happened, and instead of, because they're all Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm mistaken. This time it transported them to Osaka, and they find out that there's an Osaka team, and there's so much shit that happens in that. And if you want to check it out, it gives a really good like basis of how messed up the story is and all the shit that they have to
like
fight.
the movie can be standalone. You might be a little confused, but like we basically, as long as you understand the game at this point in the story, you can watch that movie without having seen anything before.
And if you want to check out some cool historical places that Sean and I may or may not have been at whenever we were actually in Osaka.
There was the battle in Osaka in that movie. We were there.
Yeah.
And our trip to Japan.
Oh my god, I recognize all this stuff.
Yes.
That's awesome, guys.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So, what you guys should do, because I have never seen any, I don't know what the art looks like or anything, you should totally throw some up on our Instagram page for myself and any listeners who may not know what they are. That way they can go look at it, check it out, just pull some screenshots or something. Because I would love to see what these characters look like and get a better feel for what the art is and stuff in it. And, that would be a kick-ass way to do that. And by the way, I love our Instagram page. I love what we all throw up there. It's a lot of fun.
We have an Instagram page.
We do. It's at SFG Podcast on Instagram. That's also the same handle we have for Twitter for anybody who wants to use that.
Just for your own reference, though, that is, I know the fans can see it, but that's a lot of the first original characters, and those black suits are what they're given to protect themselves.
Nice.
They have a limited lifespan as they start leaking fluids as they take damage.
Very cool.
And then that's a thing that happens occasionally.
That actually looks like Neil Gaiman. Throw those up on the IG page just so everybody who's listening can go and look and get a better feel for it. Guys, I learn something new from you guys every time. It's no secret that manga and anime, because I say it right, is not
so proud of you.
it is a blind spot for me in the world of sequential art and animation, and I really appreciate the perspective and the knowledge you guys bring. This is always a really fun segment, and I'm not just blowing smoke. I really do like learning new stuff from you guys.
Well, we appreciate giving the time. Our bowls are empty. Ikidakimasu.
Nice. All right. Well, we are going to jump from the world of manga and anime, and we're gonna talk about some comics. We're about to get smothered covered in comics here on the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. This is the segment for those of you who may be new to the show where we look at books that have came out recently. They don't necessarily have to be from last week. Oftentimes they are, but there's stuff that may very well still be sitting on the shelf at your local comic shop. They're definitely available on online retailers such as Midtown Comics or Discount Comic Book Service, DCB.com. And you can absolutely go and, if you read digitally, you can go find them on Comixology. Yeah, so this is that beautiful section where we get to dive into some comics that you guys can go find right now and consume because it's what we talk about, it's what we do, it's what we love. So who wants to get started this week?
I'll go. I had a hard time once again this week finding a book that I was ready or prepared to talk about because I want to bring books that speak to me out to the public for you guys to consume. This week I chose Flash, number 45. Of course, it's DC Comics. It's written by Joshua Williamson. Christian Duce is the artist, and Louis Guerrero is the colorist. This is one of those weird books that falls as both a closing book to a previous story arc and a setup book for the next story arc. And it's closing up the really good Grodd story that just finished. Central City's in ruins, or at least not in ruins, but it's devastated. They're having to rebuild a large portion of Central City after this battle. The whole Flash family is there, which is Flash number 2, Wally West, Kid Flash, Wally West, the kid, and then Mina Wahan, I think is how you say her name in the comics, the Chinese Flash.
Okay,
That's on the Justice League, the new Superman Justice League book. She's on that team. But she's got the Speed Force, and so they all teamed up to help beat Grodd. So now they're all kind of meeting up, doing their thing, and about to go their own ways. Well, one of the things that happened in that story was Barry convinced older Wally, that he needs to go talk to Iris and tell her that he's back, and he's scared she won't remember him because of the events of what happened for both New 52 and Rebirth. Flashpoint. Wally West was lost in the Speed Force. No one remembered him. Him coming back actually started the Rebirth scenario. So it sets up with Barry and Iris having this conversation because Barry's just recently told Iris that he's the Flash. And as he told her, then Grodd attacked the city. So now they're kind of following up that conversation. And he's telling her because she's Iris and she's an investigative reporter, she's asking all these questions, wanting to know, tell me about Flash, blah, blah, blah. Well, then it cuts back to Kid Flash and Negative Flash, which is Mina Dwahan, or Dwan, I can't say her name. Anyways, it's those two talking, and obviously they're crushing on each other, but Wally kind of dismisses her. And as she runs off, she says, "You're not as fast as you think." Kind of like, you should have caught on that I am crushing on you. And she runs off to go back to China, and Robin is sitting on the building and behind them. And he turns and looks at him and says, "I know you're there. Why don't you just tell me what you want?" Because they've been kind of fighting in Teen Titans, apparently. And you can tell he's mad that Wally even knew he was there, but he says, "Our father figures are making the same mistakes. We need to talk."
Now, when you say Robin...
Damian
Wayne. Okay, I wanted to make sure that I was tracking.
Yeah, he says, "Hey guys," or he says, "Hey Wally, we need to get together and talk because our father figures are making the same similar mistakes," meaning Bruce and of course Barry. So setting up a Teen Titans special that's coming out in June, and it tells you to refer to that for that book that's coming out. So then it cuts back to it, and there's not a lot of action in this book. It's story. It's pure story.
A lot of exposition.
Yeah, because it's a setup. It's a in book and a setup book. So it cuts back to Barry and Iris talking. He says, "Okay, well, since we're being 100% honest, there's something else I need to show you or tell you." And she goes, "What?" And Wally walks in, and she looks at him, and she's not supposed to remember who he is. And she immediately recognizes him and remembers him, and walks up and puts her hand on his face. And as soon as he does, he screams in agony and says, "I remember everything." And it ends with a giant splash page that shows all pre-Rebirth or pre-New 52 Wally West story. It shows him.
Okay.
It shows him getting his powers. It shows him as Kid Flash. It shows him as Flash. It shows it's just a little scene from each of
everything leading up to this point.
So, and then it says next, Road to Flash Wars.
Well, yeah, and for people who don't know why that's important or anything, a lot of people, again, we have some listeners who haven't kept up with comics continuity. This is interesting because there was about a 5-year period where DC had a continuity called the New 52 that was brought on by an event called the Flashpoint, where we spoke about Booster Gold and how he has an epic penchant for fucking up time. And just causing all kind of problems. A lot of ways Barry has that same thing. And so Flashpoint happened, it reset continuity. New 52 happened, Rebirth fixed that, and so that's essentially where it's coming from. It's like there's not supposed to be this throwback for that. And Wally West was not anywhere to be found in New 52.
Right.
Look, you said it went pre New 52.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm getting my Flash kids mixed up. Wally West, Kid Flash, before 52, was not African American.
No.
Did they acknowledge that?
So Wally, there's 2 Wally West currently in continuity.
Oh, okay.
So you have pre-New 52 Wally West that's an adult, and then you have child Wally West, which is the African American. They are both nephews of Iris from different brothers. So
I didn't know they did all that. Okay.
So that was actually what brought on Rebirth, was bringing the adult Wally West back into continuity. So you have, because he showed up, and the only person that remembers him is Barry Allen. And it wasn't, they touched, and then Barry Allen's like, "Oh my gosh, how did I forget you?" And all of this stuff happens.
Pun intended, but literally one of the most touching moments in DC history in the past 5 or 10 years. Until this moment, apparently.
So, because now so my theory is that we had Flashpoint that started New 52. We had, they didn't really call it an event, but the Rebirth book, which was Wally West coming back, or pre-New 52 Wally West coming back. Now we have this that's leading to the road. It's the road to the Flash War. I believe that is going to bring us to the DC Fresh Start, the rumored Fresh Start. So we're going to have a trilogy of Flash events that lead us to the DC Fresh Start.
Tom King actually tweeted something the other day that I thought was super important. And for those of you at home who are continuity hounds and who want to keep up with where these big things come from in DC, you're gonna have to read Flash Wars. I'm not on it. It's one of those stories. I'm not a ginormous Flash fan, but I'm gonna start picking it up because it's gonna be one of those important things that explains what's going on. Tom King, who is the writer of Batman, is just laying accolade after accolade after accolade on what's been written for Flash War, and he says that he knows what's going to happen because he's writing a lot of what comes out of it right now because he's writing ahead, and it's just when Tom King says something is important and special, you got to listen to it because wow,
So if you don't like Flash, I still recommend at least periodically checking in on it because all of the major events that happen in DC spin out of Flash.
Absolutely.
I mean, not all of them, but all of the continuity changing events, I guess I should say, seem to spin out of Flash.
So Flash War is going to be its own book or a crossover event?
It's going to be a crossover event, I believe.
DC's going to get all my money.
They have not. They haven't announced it yet.
Okay, but these issues that are leading to it, though, are going to
start. The next couple of books are going to be in the Flash, and then when it goes from there, it's going to probably be a big crossover event. Would be my thing.
I'm probably going to be jumping on that too. Because if Tom King is saying it's amazing, I'm on it.
I kind of personally hope it's just an event in those books, though. But that's just me.
It's not going.
I know it's not. They like that. I mean, and the thing is, those sell. Mm-hmm. Even though people complain about them, they absolutely sell.
They wouldn't do it if they weren't making money on them. Indeed. So,
Sean, did you read a book this week?
I did read a book.
Was it refreshing?
Actually, you know what? I'm looking without saying. This week's book is Savage Dragon, but it's not for the usual reasons. To be honest, there's no graphic sexual nature into any of this. It's actually taken a turn in the book that I think is actually interesting. And while Saga came out this last week too, I almost talked about it, but I don't know. I think there was something actually pretty significant in Savage Dragon this week, so we're gonna get into that. It opens up for those who actually read. Brief synopsis: some of Savage Dragon's allies are in a dimension called Dimension X, which leads to which they're basically trying to hunt down a dimension traveling villain that they've dealt with for a long time. I'm not gonna get into all that. Long short of it, though, they find out he's gone, but they also find out that this alternate dimension has an alternate Rapture. I think I may have discussed this in a previous issue, who was the wife and had a child of the original Savage Dragon, who is now the current Savage Dragon, Malcolm Dragon. They found out there's Rapture is in this, and she's also been impregnated by another Savage Dragon, and they are now allied with a Malcolm Dragon to this alternate reality. I know, a lot to take in. Long and short of it, though, Alex, the police partner of the original Dragon, long time from issue 1, is going with Malcolm Dragon because they found his dimension traveling machine and are going to go look for another dragon, an original Savage Dragon.
Okay.
Bring back. There's a little follow-up story in the back of this issue where they meet the first one, who's a complete piece of shit, as they find out Dragon originally was. So he's dead, going to jump to another dimension. But they are searching for that. So there's that little side story, which is very interesting about maybe possibly finding the original Savage Dragon and bringing him back. So, very cool. The end of the last issue, though, Malcolm Dragon's wife, Maxine, who is pregnant with Malcolm Dragon's baby, got electrocuted because apparently this baby is also taking on Malcolm's inherited ability from his mother, Rapture, electric power.
Wow.
It opened up with her collapsed on the ground with the other 3 from Malcolm Dragon's 4-way in high school children that he's now raising with her. Unconscious. And that brings up the big thing I kind of wanted to talk about. If anyone has y'all have the broad comic knowledge. Has there ever been an instance with a woman pregnant with a superpowered baby that gets attacked or affected by their superpower?
Blade comes to mind, but I don't think it's in the same.
Right, okay. Yeah,
I don't think it's in the same.
But to where Lois Lane pregnant with Superman's baby, heat vision rips through her stomach or kicks her so hard that they mentioned like Mallrats. If she ever sunbathing, the baby would kick through her stomach. It's a topic that hasn't, as far as I know, has not been brought up in Eric Larson.
Not very often.
I feel like that's probably why they made it to where mutants don't gain their abilities until an age.
And maybe.
So they wouldn't have to explain stuff
Larson,
like that.
never being afraid to go mature, never afraid to go dark. And I know I don't normally spoil it, but he really handles the consequences. Because she gets zapped, they take her to the hospital. the doctors are like performing an emergency section to get out the baby because obviously it's showing its powers, and if she gets zapped again, it's gonna, it could endanger her life, kill her. Like I said, a lot of stuff goes down in this issue, but like I said, the big thing we get to is they open her up, they get the baby out, they get the baby out, and they're relieved until the electricity kicks off again, going down into Maxine, and she dies.
Mm-hmm.
And Malcolm, Malcolm found out at the end of the issue that his wife just died from their own baby.
Mm.
It's a dark turn for sure. Like I said, Eric Larson not scared to go there, and I thought it was an interesting topic because, like I said, it's something I don't think comics ever actually addressed the dangers of a superpowered baby that can't control their abilities. Mm-hmm. And I think he touched on it really well. I mean, I know this is a grindhouse kind of comic book, but it was actually handled very serious, and I was actually very impressed by it.
Robert Kirkman, Tom McFarlane, Eric Larson, if you're listening to this show, it is time for you to go back to these old series that started Image off and give us trade paperbacks so that we can have new readers read the old stuff and get caught up on the new. Some of the books do, some of the books don't.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Savage Dragon needs trade paperbacks.
Proper trades. I mean, Eric, if you are somehow listening to this, we appreciate the omnibus, but the black and white newspaper print book, giant collections they are, even though they are affordable more so than most omnibus, don't do your work and art justice.
Yeah.
Colored trade paperbacks would be so much better.
On a lighter note, there was that time in Old Man Logan where Hulk was pregnant with Wolverine, and he just kind of ripped out of his
There was that.
Well, you know what? In this very same issue, there was Malcolm was battling a phaser villain who could go through things, and Malcolm actually electrocuted him when he was trying to phase through him to rip out his organs. And he died in Malcolm's, in his body. So he had a body in him that later exploded when they finally stopped morphing.
I appreciate both your and Craig's plea to have these things put into collected edition in trade form. That being said, if Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson and the rest of the Robert Kirkman or Rob Liefeld, like whoever, if they are listening, I would rather you just sponsor my podcast. You can send us money, and then we will talk about it later.
You know what? Okay, fine, Caleb. At least acknowledge us for giving the idea and the prompting.
I'm just kidding.
How many issues of that do you own? Do you own all of it?
Oh no, I'm still working on a complete run.
I was about to say you could just redraw it all and put it in a big omnibus.
Could I? Could I, Jared? Shut up, Jared.
Well, and I think it's worth noting that Savage Dragon. This was issue. What'd you say? 233.
233.
And there's not a lot of comics that have numbers up that high it's never broken its numbering.
No, right.
And so I think that's worth noting, and it's a very important.
Yeah, he may have missed a few deadlines in his career, but Eric Larson has been on Savage Dragon for the jump of Image, and let's love it or hate it, it's a good book. It's a long running series. I enjoy it.
It kind of missed too many because it's not too many issues behind Spawn.
Right.
I'm not sure Spawn's
taking breaks actually.
Spawn's at 260 something right now, I think, but over that course of time to only have that many breaks or whatever in there. I mean, and when you're writing and drawing your own comic book, I mean, that's forgivable.
And that is the thing. Eric Larson writes, draws, colors, inks, everything.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, he's taken a few breaks where somebody, like just a few issues where somebody else is drawing. Somebody else is drawing it and everything. But I mean, yeah, still, it's a long running thing. It's definitely all drafted by his hand. It's all pushed by him, and he's still the major creator on it. And even if you have issues with what he's writing, or if you have issues with his online presence, or just anything in general, it's still worth noting that he's one of the few people who has created something and has followed it through. Not even McFarlane has stayed on Spawn the entire time.
So Sean sold me on Savage Dragon, but I would like to read it from the beginning, which is dang near impossible.
Well, you can find trades on Amazon and stuff like that.
You can get, if you want to get into it, you can find at least the first 12 or 13 trades. Then it goes into the omnibuses.
Yeah.
Omnibuy, whatever the plural is. And now they've started trades on the newer books.
Okay.
But there's just that big middle chunk, for whatever reason, they haven't put in a trade.
Okay.
And then back to your question, you mentioned asking if Superman had ever, there was a situation with that or anything. when Superman got Lois pregnant, he was actually depowered. That's the only reason that they were able to have a baby. And so that they had done that just for that. So no, as far as I know, other than, like I said, maybe a Blade tangent or maybe some other stuff in independent comics.
Right. How does John have powers?
Comics.
Look, I only said Superman because I was making a Mallrats reference because that's what he asked Stan Lee.
I forgot about that. Good. Deep cuts. Deep cuts, Sean.
Yeah, so I had two different books that I was thinking about going over, and I said last week that I wasn't going to talk about Thanos again, but Infinity War just came out, and it's technically the last issue of the series. It's the Thanos Annual came out this week, and I'm just going to go through it real quick. I'm not going to talk about every story. I'll give you the people that were on it. The first story was done Donny Cates, Jeff Shaw, Antonio Fabello. Then they had Chris Hastings, Flaviano, and Federico Lee, Carrion Gillen, thank you. Andre Arjuo, Chris O'Halloran.
For the ones he's already said and the ones he's about to say, if he's mispronounced any of your names, feel free to come on this podcast and fight us about it.
Sean is not letting this die.
They had a hilarious My Little Thanos story with Katie Cook and Heather Breckel.
I love Katie Cook's work. Absolutely love Katie Cook.
It was hilarious. Ryan North, Will Robinson, and Rochelle Rosenberg did a story in it, and then the last story was Al Ewing, and is it Ewing or
it's Ewing?
Al Ewing and Fraser Irving, and it pretty much starts off with our cosmic Ghost Rider chilling and looking at the cosmos, and he's just talking, and you think that he's talking to us, the reader. Mm-hmm. He's just like narrating, and he tells us all these different stories. It's kind of funny because the first story that was done by Shaw and Cates was actually pretty serious. It was a little story about him and his daughter Gamora. And then it just kind of, the issue turns after that, and it's just hilarity, like hilarious story after hilarious. There's one where like Thanos is technically haunting this child, and every single one of his birthdays he comes and visits him and brings some kind of catastrophe to him. Like at one point he hits him up whenever he's 16 years old and swipes his phone from him and sends like a nasty text to his girlfriend, and she breaks up with him. He's like, there's no escaping that one, boy. There's no bringing that one back.
He really is a bastard.
So he just like back and forth. He's constantly like fucking with this kid. And there's one scene where he's like 27 and he's like got all of his shit packed up in a box in his office. So he's like, oh, you got me fired. He's like, no, that's actually just kind of a lucky coincidence. That's bad luck. Your cat's dead, though. So yeah. Jesus. So the next story after that is actually from Infinity Gauntlet, where Mephisto's telling him, because Mistress Death isn't talking to him, and Mephisto's telling him that he needs to show her art and love and passion. So he blows up all these planets that are all about all those emotions and makes these beautiful solar fireworks for her. The next one is My Little Thanos, where he sees this bright, shiny pink planet, and it's all like done in chibi form. And he goes to this planet, and all these little cute critters are happy to see him, and he's basically calling him their god, and they're happy, and they're like, oh yeah, you're our god, what do you want from us? And he says something about murder, so they're like, oh yeah, we'll do anything for you. So they just start viciously murdering each other and goring each other, and he's not like, I'm not really into this because you guys are into it. So he decides to leave, and that one just sort of ended there. This one was probably my favorite. And it's called That Time Thanos Helped an Old Lady Cross the Street. And they're talking about his different gems. And it goes into the time gem of how he can see the future. And he goes and he finds this old lady, and he's helping her cross the street, and he's stopping all these vehicles and stuff like that. And Ghost Rider keeps talking about how diabolical it is and everything. Well, you find out that in one of the vehicles on a bus was a girl who was supposed to have the cure for cancer and all this stuff, but only whenever she bumped into this other particular person. since he stopped the bus, he basically stopped, like, changed the flow of time, and she never met her potential. So then he finds her when she's old and dying and shows her what she could have done. So that one was pretty messed up.
I love how he's just like that
just
one was pretty bad.
I mean, it was a crazy story. The interesting thing that got me at the end of it, because we know that there's a miniseries coming in July for Cosmic Ghost Rider, we find out that this whole time he was talking to Odin. He was telling Odin all these stories in front of the gates of Valhalla. And Odin essentially welcomes him into Valhalla. And the Cosmic Ghost Rider series is going to branch off from this. It says to be continued from that. So before I was wondering, like, are they going to tell that story? Because I thought he was a really, really cool and interesting character. And I was wondering if they were going to branch this story off from, you know, before he encountered Thanos and basically became his bitch, or if they had something to do after it, because, you know, from the end of that Thanos story, their entire universe got erased. So I didn't really see where they were going to go with it. But yeah, I guess we'll get to wait until July to see where it comes from there. But that was a Thanos annual. I enjoyed it.
It sounds fun. I love those. I love those. I don't know what you call them, because they're not technically anthologies. They're not long enough to be anthologies, but just that mixture. They're an anthology-like comic with those different stories in there.
Collection of short stories.
Yeah. The one with the chibis and just the funny one reminded me. Have you ever heard of the comic series Thanos and Darkseid Carpool Buddies of Doom?
Were you posting about that not too long ago?
I may have been.
Yeah.
It's our buddy Justin Jordan actually wrote it. I want to say Ray for Robert. I may be wrong. It's hilarious. And it's a webcomic. You can find it all online for free. It's funny as shit.
I feel like maybe something's been going on with it lately, because I remember seeing it, like, here recently. Like, and I don't remember if it was you. I want to say there was, like, some kind of news or somebody else posted it.
I'm not, and it may have been on like a best of web series list or something. It's hilarious, and if you like the comical side of Thanos and Darkseid and that stuff,
it's just always funny to see them take, like, this big scary villain that, like, can just wreck everything and put him in a, like, weird comedic role like that.
By the way, your cat's dead. Damn.
So messed up. Just tormenting this kid, like, every year on his birthday.
Well, yeah, man. I'd say I didn't pick that up, and that's hilarious. So the book I read this week it's Marvel Rising #0, and I wanted to mention this book. Number one, I really enjoyed it. Number two, it's absolutely free. You can go to your local comic shop, or you can, if you're buying online, you just click it. It costs you exactly $0.00. It's one of those things that they do every once in a while to send out to get people kind of hyped up for something that's coming. But also because this is a comic that is geared towards a younger audience, specifically a younger female audience, which I think is cool. But again, it's one of those things that just because it's an all ages comic does not mean it's not enjoyable from the adult perspective, because I love this comic. And getting the younger generations to read comics is important. It's something that comics, the industry does not do nearly enough. It's something they don't put enough attention to, and they don't put enough effort into attracting a younger generation of comics readers. The average age of the average comic reader right now is between 25 and 35, I think. And that's mainly, or older, who are still buying comics. And if we want the industry to continue into future years, we got to get kids reading this stuff. And so there has to be comics that they can read. So Marvel Rising #0 is one of those books. And it features two characters that I absolutely love. It features Doreen Green, the Invincible Squirrel Girl, and it features Kamala Khan, who is Miss Marvel. It's Miss Marvel with the MS, period. It was written by Devin Grayson. It was drawn by Marco Falia, and colored by Rachel Rosenberg. And the book basically starts us off. It's a setup book, kind of like Craig's was earlier. It's looking at what's going to happen. Doreen Green is a tech student. She's a computer programming tech student in college. She is going to be running a summer program for kids in high school who are interested in tech, kind of an eSTEM kind of thing. And so she has them at the science, technology, electronics, and mathematics student support day. It's kind of like a field trip that she's taking these kids on. And one of her students happens to be Kamala Khan, happens to be Miss Marvel. Now, I don't know in this setting if those two people recognize each other in their civilian forms or not, if they realize who one another are. They don't seem like it in this book, or at least they're keeping appearances.
Doesn't she have a tail? Wouldn't it be hard?
She doesn't in this. No, apparently that's something that she's able to hide. Squirrel Girl's tail is not visible when she's not in this. For people who don't know those two characters, Squirrel Girl is aptly named. She has the superpowers of a squirrel and superpowers of a girl. She also she's been an Avenger. She's historically punched Thanos, which was pretty cool if we're going to keep up with the Thanos parade. Miss Marvel is an Inhuman, and she has what she calls embiggening powers. So she kind of Mr. Fantastic, like she can stretch, she can grow, she can do lots of things. Really, really cool character. She's a young Muslim woman from New Jersey, which I think is pretty badass, just doing all kinds of cool stuff. And so, yeah, anyway, a little bit of background on those characters. But what they're doing is they're on this field trip and they're looking at science and mathematics. Doreen, or Squirrel Girl, is making sure students, particularly one student who has some earrings and some, she's kind of a punk rock chick, listening to earbuds, not really paying attention. She's trying to get them interested and involved. When, of course, what happens? AIM attacks.
As they're wont to do.
As they're wont to do. But it's really interesting because in recent continuity, AIM has been taken over by one of the Avengers, and it's been ran by, I want to say, Roberto.
Sunspot.
Yeah, Sunspot. He's been running it, but he recently gave it up. He sold it. So I guess maybe AIM is going back to its more nefarious ways.
Did you read Avengers this week?
I have not read it this week yet.
Okay, yeah, they give the name back. They changed the name because he actually sold it to Tony.
Yeah.
Or gave it to Tony with all of the funds, and she's like, we're just going to give that back because it's not worth fighting the government over having this name.
Okay. Well, so yeah, that happened, and apparently AIM is back to its more nefarious ways. They're coming in there to essentially hold a hostage situation. They're wanting to scan these kids for whatever it is to see who's doing what in the future and to find out just a lot of things. AIM is not a good thing. So, of course, Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel spring into action. They both kind of go change into their costumes. They bust out. There's some butt kicking that goes on. There's this really cool moment where if I were to give you two characters, if I were to give you Colossus and Wolverine, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Fastball special. Miss Marvel grabs Squirrel Girl and launches her in the air. There's this really fun moment to where Squirrel Girl's grinning from ear to ear, saying, I always had a feeling you'd get me. And Miss Marvel says ditto. And then she flies through the air. She says, to me, my squirrel army. She busts open the door. And Chitty Chit, who is Squirrel Girl's little sidekick and squirrel friend, busts up in there. And squirrel violence, really, really cool little empowered moments for these young women doing all kinds of really awesome things. And, they beat the shit out of AIM. Again, just for those who are listening who might have kids that you want to get into the book, this is an all ages book. There's no cussing, there's no hyper violence. It's just really, really fun, really, really energized, bright colors, bright people. Really just a fun book. I absolutely love it. It's an all ages book, but I'm a grown ass man, and I'm going to add this to my pull list. It's really, really fun. Of course, like I said, this is a setup book, so you get that moment where you get the little text block that says "Meanwhile." And an AIM agent has escaped. They've got a scanner, and they're looking at stuff. He's speaking to somebody that he obviously knows who it is. The book does not let you know who it is. Did you get the information? Do you have what we need? And it shows you a scan on his little technological iPad-like device of the young girl who had the earrings. She was listening to her music. She was kind of ignoring everything that was going on. Little punk chick. And it's like, yeah, I have exactly what you need. And so, on top of this being a fun book, on top of this being a really cool adventure, this is also the first appearance of a new character. For collectors out there who might be interested in this, this is the first time this character's appeared, and she's going to be a part of this Marvel Rising thing. This could be the next big Marvel thing, especially in this Champions-like world, where you have characters like Squirrel Girl and you have Miss Marvel. Her name is Ember Kavanaugh Quaid. We don't know her kind of superhero name yet. I imagine Quaid will be part of it. She's 15 years old. She has a mother named Amber Marie, and she's an Inhuman. She's like Miss Marvel, and she has the genetic markers, but I don't think that she knows what she is yet. And so there's just going to be this almost like a Jubilee thing where they take this young character and they throw her into the world and they look at her. The back of the book gives you the quote-unquote AIM subject report, her kind of profile. So you find out that she is, she's healthy. She's born in Reno. Her parents are divorced. Her mom is, known to engage in brief romantic attachments that often lead to home relocation. So she's got some instability in her life. She's had 27 addresses on record. She's a kind of antisocial and non-compliant behavior, which I love that they use the phrase non-compliant in there, especially considering she's a young woman. I fully support young women being non-compliant. She is post-teragenesis. She appears to have isolated herself from her peers. Her powers cause electrical anomalies triggered by emotional stimuluses. That's where the Jubilee thing comes in. She appears capable of absorbing, storing, and weaponizing this energy, and she can manifest it to do we don't really know what. So if you're a collector, if you're interested in having first appearances or quote-unquote key issues, this book is just that. It's also really fun. I'm going to go pick up a few more copies from my local shop so I can give it to... I'm going to get 3 copies to give it to all three of my nieces, only 2 of which are really into comics, but hey, you never know. This might be the book that gets the third one on board, and I love being the cool nerd uncle. So
kids' comics are important.
They absolutely are.
It's the future of the industry, whether comic book stores know it or not. If you don't have them on the rack, kids have nothing to buy when they walk in your store, and you're losing the next generation of readers by not having something for them.
They're going to be only interested in film and television.
Yeah.
And I mean that from the...
Well, print is a dying media anyways.
I don't think it's dying. I just think it's becoming more niche.
Yes.
And I say that because I want to be a writer, so I hope writing's not...
Well, I mean, writing and books aren't going away. It's transferring to digital.
It's evolving, yeah.
So if you don't have an attachment to this medium, and you don't have somebody that introduces you to that medium, you're going to lose out a whole generation because there just aren't enough kids' books out there right now.
Take it from somebody who's almost 30 years old that just got into reading novels, and it's just fucking taken off.
Yeah. It's reading is fun, and reading is important for cognitive development of children. It's good for our society as a whole. I've said it 1,000 times, and everybody knows. I think a lot of people who have listened to the show knows the work I do with Little Rock's unsheltered community and the work I do with the van. Public libraries are the only public space in our society, period, point blank, that you can go into on a daily basis and not be expected to spend a dime. Mm-hmm. And that's important. We have to have that. If we lose the art and the literature in our society, it's what are we doing? What are we fighting for? We just had a major theater announce that they're closing here in Little Rock, and it's kind of crushing to the artistic community. But I also really want to reiterate that just because a comic says all ages, or just because it's geared towards a younger audience, or it makes itself available to be read by younger people, doesn't mean you can't enjoy it as a grown person.
That's absolutely
one of my favorite series right now is the DC Superhero Girls. I absolutely love it. I'm a 30-year-old, heavily tattooed, motorcycle-loving, metal-listening guy, and one of my favorite books involves these young characters, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant writing, and so I encourage listeners of all ages to go get it. But again, get it for your kids, get it for your nieces, your nephews, get it, support your local library. If they don't have a copy, go buy it and donate it to them. It's just fun. It's just fun stuff, man. If you don't love Squirrel Girl, if you can't find a way to enjoy Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel, then why are you reading comics? Because they embody the fun spirit of everything that we love. The just outrageous, absurd, unexpected, fun elements of the books it's in these pages.
Yeah.
So and you can tell from the cover of this book that you're going to get more characters other than just Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel. America is on there. Captain Marvel's on there. Spider-Gwen is on there, who I don't really like. But Quake is on there from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You get the Falcon. I think that's Rhoda Costa, Sunspot. I mean, there's going to be a.
I think it's the Inhuman. I can't think of his name. The one that's got the fire powers that they started the Inhuman book with.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
His name right now.
It could be. I don't know. That's going to all show up at number 1. And in the back, it gives you some. This book gives you some art from number 1. It shows you that so you can kind of see what to expect, what's coming out. There's this really. There's a little short story from the Superhero Adventures in the back. It's just a fun book, man. There's a lot in this to consume. So Marvel Rising number 0. Go grab it. It's a lot of fun.
And it's free.
It will cost you exactly 0 pennies.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to your comic book store, pick that up, pick up some other books, read some comics.
That's my line. No, I'm just kidding.
Go forth, read some podcast over for PS5.
I actually want Craig to say it this time. I mean, in general, all around, those were 4, it sounds like 4 really fun books. And I'm not reading Flash. I didn't read the Thanos Annual. Those are
fun books and important books to the series.
Yeah,
to their
just in general.
series.
Savage Dragon is its thing. No, I'm just kidding, Sean. I absolutely love the passion you talk about it.
Absolutely.
So,
I don't need your patronize themselves there.
I just like the cover of that. You said there was no sexual element to Savage Dragon, but the cover says otherwise.
Okay, well, since he brought it up, because like I said, it was a more serious story than what
I got too good. I elevated this beyond what it needs to be. I need you to bring it back down.
Let's bring it back down to earth. Yes, the cover is actually since Maxine and Malcolm are part of a reality show while they're living in Canada. They also got advertisement for some shaving cream, where Maxine is wearing a tank top that says "Bald is beautiful," and Malcolm has shaving cream over his beard. Well, she also has a shaving cream
over her vulva.
If you want to try your college words you looked up right before this interview. Yes, she has shaving cream down there, and bald is beautiful. So yes, keeping it classy as always, Eric Larson. I love your work.
we opened up to a wider audience, and then we shut them off. So
it was Jerry's use of vulva that really dropped it down.
Well, yeah, guys.
I don't know anatomy. Leave me alone.
He just likes to poke it.
Just hats. That's how it works. Is that how sex
so
works?
quickly we went from here to
anytime you bring it up, Jerry is saying it drops everything.
It's very rare I get to talk about vaginas. So as a gay man, this is a unique opportunity for me to shine.
He's not wrong.
Listen, I've watched Dragon Ball. I know how the female anatomy works. Okay, I know women don't have tails. All right.
Unless you're Squirrel. Anyway, guys, get out to your local comic shop or order them online. Those are really fun books. They're absolutely worth your time. They won't cost you a dime. One of them won't. The other ones will cost you a few dimes. But if nothing else, that's what we like to do. There's 4 comics you can go out there and get this week. Do we have anything else comic-wise that we just need to cover, things that happened?
Not necessarily. I mean, before we get into our next segment, I did want to throw out that Free Comic Book Day is next Saturday.
It is.
So, and it's a great way to go and support your local comic book store. They're usually always running some kind of specials. There's a lot of free stuff given out, and a lot of it is geared towards kids. So that's another really good way to get kids into comic books. I mean, I know Kapow, the store that I used to work at, that we all shop at.
Where's that at?
I'm not saying it. So Matt up there always he always favors children getting into comics. So where a lot of comic book stores will be like, oh, only 2 comics, per person. He'll a lot of times he'll just let kids, take however many you want and everything like that. It's just really good way to get into it. Like I said, there's always a lot of people have sales on back issues, trade paperbacks, and all that stuff. So go hit up. And it's only on Saturday. It's the first Saturday of May every year.
I want to say it's May 5th this year.
Yes.
Yeah, it's May 5th. Almost every local comic shop across the United States, at least, they contribute in this. And there will be, I want to say, close to 40 or 50 options for you to choose from. Now, Matt is pretty benevolent, and he will let kids get multiple copies. For adults, I think the limit is 3. You're allowed to get 3 free comic books, but they are free. I always encourage people to go in there into your comic shop and spend a little bit of money. Don't just walk in, grab the free ones, and walk out, because a lot of times they're offering sales on collected issues, on trade paperbacks, on graphic novels, on just wall books, on back issues. Mm-hmm. So it's a good chance to get more bang for your buck, grab some free comics, see what's coming out, see what indie comics companies are offering, or see maybe what's going on in the world. And it's kind of like comic book Christmas sometimes in a lot of ways. I would say it's one of the high holy days of comicdom.
Yeah,
it's Free Comic Book Day.
Absolutely.
I do think it's worth noting that the death of Thor wrapped up last week in Jason Aaron's book. So that's just, a sidebar.
That and the start of the return of Wolverine.
Yep, that also kicked off. So both of those things are really important things to note in comics.
And we didn't talk about either of those books.
And well, that's okay. We don't have to talk about everything.
That's right. Go read those books.
Yes. I like the variety that we throw out there, and that we don't, so there's a lot of podcasts out there that do comic stuff that talk about the main things. They hit all the big notes, and some are quality, some are not, but largely there are a lot of them. I like that we do talk about them sometimes, but we also offer other things.
Well, the thing about that is that comic fans are going to know about the big events happening anyways. So sometimes it's nice to be able to point out the books that maybe not everybody's reading, or people should be reading that they're not, or whatever. So,
Indeed.
Well, then, if there is nothing else, let's get ready to bring this thing home. Let's talk about some books that are coming out next week. You guys cool with that?
Absolutely.
All right. This part is where we get ahead of ourselves a little bit and see what's coming down the pipeline in the future, and talk about different books that different ones of us may or may pick up. We may talk about them next week. So I never want to assume that I'm going first. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Fight!
Jerry, you can go for it.
Okay.
If you stole my book, I'm punching you.
I hope I did. I bet this is it too. There's a new Avengers #1.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Was it? No, I'm just kidding. With Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness, and I actually haven't read an Avengers book in a really long time.
Oh,
so
you should.
Yeah, I know.
New
You guys
Surrender.
talk about it all the time.
I'm getting the hardcover. I'll let you
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
when New Surrender comes out in trade, just get that and read it. You don't have to read the rest of the run. It wasn't important.
Yeah, it's just I've been burned on Avengers before, so I assume I'll get caught up somehow eventually. But
my heart.
No, it looks like it's going to be a fun run, and it's a jumping
Jason
on
Aaron.
point, and it's Jason Aaron. You can't really go wrong. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, I won't go that far because he's gone wrong before.
Okay.
Okay, my book is Hillbilly #9 is finally coming out. And for those of you that don't know what Hillbilly is, it's amazing art by Eric Powell and written by Eric Powell. And if you don't know who he is, he's the guy that created and wrote and drew Goon. So this is a bunch of, every story is either contained within one book or two books. And it's about a hillbilly named Rondell, and he's blind. And he's out there hunting witches with his, in the Appalachian Mountains with his special meat cleaver that was given to him by the devil. And he's out there killing all the witches and keeping the Appalachians safe for normal people. It's a very, very good book. I know I did not do it justice in that rant, but it's one of my favorite books every time it comes out.
Well, and I'm gonna try to throw some of the pictures of everything on our Instagram page so people can see the art, because I think the art is a big draw on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the story's been fantastic. I mean, each book is its own story. So if you haven't read the first 8, all you really need to know is he's a Rob Zombie-looking hillbilly that's out killing witches. That's all you really need to know.
With the devil's meat cleaver.
Dragging them through the ditches.
Oh, don't do that.
Burn through the way.
Oh, here we go. We've started a thing.
I love it. Great.
Right.
Well, I'll go next. I'm going to let Sean finish this up. He's a good closer. So the book I want everybody to look into next week and get ahead of myself a little bit on is Red Sonja and Tarzan #1 from Dynamite Entertainment. This is written by Gail Simone. It's drawn by Walter Giovanni. And yeah, it comes out next Wednesday for the price of $3.39, which is it's actually $3.99, but you order it offline, you can get a discount. Or if you have a pull box at your local comic shop, a lot of times you get a discount. The She-Devil with a Sword meets the Lord of the Jungle. Isandul is an evil man, and the mere mention of his name makes the powerful quake with fear. He has no regard for life, including that of other men. But he may finally have met his match when he finds himself up against Red Sonja and Tarzan. Gail Simone, who wrote Birds of Prey and former Red Sonja stories, and Walter Giovanni of Red Sonja and Clean Room reunite to bring us the crossover event featuring two of fiction's greatest heroes side by side at last. You guys know I love pulp stories. You know I love Tarzan, Conan, Red Sonja, stuff like that. This book is made for me, and it's Gail Simone. So,
Absolutely.
worth grabbing.
Yep.
Well, honestly, I was going to talk about the new issue of Batman that was coming out. It's coming out next week, which I'm excited about, which we know that. But then I just kind of realized it's been a long time. As big of a Harley Quinn fan as I am, I can say I'm looking forward to a Harley Quinn book.
Really?
So I'm going to address that. Harley Quinn, Harley Loves Joker #1. It is written by Paul Dini, who co-created Harley Quinn. And it's going to be a flashback tale to a backup story called Harley Loves Joker in the Harley Quinn issue last year. Now that I have to hunt down. It's only going to be a 2-part series, but it's classic Harley story coming back.
I was going to say, I've actually heard of Harley Loves Joker. I was thinking it was a throwback, so it makes sense that it's a throwback to another story.
And it's been a great long time since I've been saying I'm looking forward to a Harley book because as big a fan as I am, it stemmed from the cartoon. I just haven't liked what they've done with her lately. So I'm actually really looking forward to this. I'm going to scoop up both issues and any variants because Frank Cho did a variant cover.
Ooh, nice.
I'm going to jump on that.
Yeah, Frank Cho's a good.
And I want to throw in one last little thing before we end up because I'm a good closer. A throwback. It feels like it's been a while. A few episodes back, we reviewed an indie comic called Alien Toilet Monsters.
Yeah.
#1 comes out next week.
Very cool.
So if we read it, we reviewed it, we gave a good breakdown. If you seemed interested, you can pick it up next week.
Absolutely. It was fun.
Yeah, way to go, Sean.
Yeah, I did not realize that was coming out. So, yeah, go out there and pick those things up. Well, guys, do we have anything further that we just really, really need to cover?
I think we got it.
All right. Well, in that case, guys, folks, dear listeners out there, if you have liked what you have heard, and we always hope you have, reach out to us and let us know. You can leave us you can rate and review us on iTunes. You can connect to us with Twitter and Instagram at SFG Podcast. You can come to our Facebook page where we're posting news and reports and pictures and doing just all kinds of little fun stuff. And we're pretty active on there.
And sometimes we really want to hammer that news in, so we'll post it twice.
Sometimes we post it 2 or 3 times.
Make sure that you see the news report.
And on that note, I just want to throw out there that apparently for you Android users, they finally caught up to iTunes or to the iPhone, and Jerry can actually post as himself now.
Praise the powers that be.
Which is a big step for him. It's a big move. He texted me and was beaming with pride that he could finally post as himself, which is just cool. But yeah, so we're doing that. We do have our email set up, so if you guys have any questions, concerns, or comments, if you have ideas, if you have things that you want us to talk about, if you're an indie comics creator or an artist and you want us to help you project yourself to our dear listeners, we'll gladly do so. So email us, southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And that's pretty much our web footprint.
Go forth and read comics.
Bam!